I'm shouting because we are breaking through the ice to put the rods back out. We must be insane. Welcome to the first ever episode of What Were We Thinking Tackle. It's mid-December, we're in deepest, darkest Hungary, and it's been snowing for the 5 days in advance of our trip. But we're at a mega lake with a load of really big fish, and the fishery manager Tommy is here to help us fish at extreme range for these awesome carp. Let's end the season on an absolute whacker. This mission could be our toughest yet. We're at Lake Szucsi, set in a beautiful valley about an hour from the capital, Budapest. There are more than 800 carp in around 50 acres, so getting bites would normally be a formality. But the water is currently 4 degrees, and with even colder weather forecast, we were not expecting it to be easy. On the build up to the trip, there was a lot of trepidation, to be honest. We've had 2 failed shoots in the last month. Coming off the back of that, you're not exactly brimming with confidence, especially knowing that it was going to snow for 4 or 5 days in a row before we got to Hungary. But Tommy's confidence has to rub off on you. He knows the place like the back of his hand. And if we didn't have him here, I'd be dooming it, I've got to be honest. But he seems super buoyant that we're going to get them, and big ones too. So I'm being realistic, but I'm also open-minded. My flight didn't arrive until mid-afternoon, and with the sun setting at 4 o'clock, I decided to spend the first day just prepping. Tommy, the fishery manager, and my partner in crime for the week, took me out to see some spots. A 9-metre deep bar at 150 yards, and 2 at more than 300 yards across the lake towards the far marginal drop-off. I hadn't fished at these extreme ranges for a long time, so I was happy to have all the help I could get. Well, the 3 rods are out with a lot of help from Tommy, I have to say. I've not fished at this range for a long time. He's really confident, you know, he reckons several fish today, and he knows the lake better than anybody. So, you know, they've gone out sweet. I've got 2 out on the far side, you know, about 20-30 yards off the bank basically as the marginal shelf drops away and flattens out. That's a really good area. We've got snags short of where we're fishing, so we've got to negotiate that in the fight, and I believe we basically pull the fish away from where you hook them just about 20 metres, and then you race out in a boat towards them so they don't get anywhere near the other snags. And then the right hand rod's only about, well, I say only 150 yards out in a much deeper area. But we've seen fish on the echo there as well, so just a little sprinkling of bait round each one, a lot more than you would use at this time of the year anywhere else, but there's that many big ones in here that you need to use more bait. On the rig front, my opening gambit was spinners made of 5.5 inches of 25-pound basics boom, D-rig kickers with a 20mm fibre bottom bait tipped with a 14mm pineapple pop-up on a size 2 Longshank X made barbless, with that all-important shot on the hook that had proved devastatingly effective on underwater. A 5-ounce cog lead completes this super spiteful setup. I fished it drop-off style to get the fish up above the various snags that were dotted all round the areas. Reel line was 15-pound sub braid for the 0 stretch and immediate bite indication. Tommy was convinced if we were going to get bites, they'd be pretty immediate, and who was I to argue? When I was flying into Budapest, it was like a Christmas card underneath the plate. Oh, I'm in. I couldn't help thinking this might be another failed shoot, but against all the odds, we were in. Right, you tell me I can get in the boat, gents. Now my concerns switched to actually landing them amongst the snags at this extreme range. There's a couple of sets of snags out there. The fish is going left. Touching snags. That's the leader. Yes, get in there. We are away. I can't believe it. Can't believe it. Yes.
I redid the rod before admiring the fish, just like I was fishing from the bank. Having an essential kit that stays in the boat is vital to stop wasting time and battery life going backwards and forwards. Plus, winter carp tend to group up, so with one bite off the spot, I wouldn't be surprised to get another one in quick succession.
And there he is, the first one, just over 20 pounds, but who cares? It is a bite at this time of the year, and oh, it may not look it because the sun's just come out, but this fish is absolutely freezing cold. It took 20 minutes to get the bite, and it was a cog lead, my favourite spinner rig, with a little snowman with a pineapple pop-up just shaved down on top of it that did the business. The fish was absolutely nailed. Obviously the rig is back out there again because we've dropped it back out before we came back to shore. A very good start, and it looks good for more. Freezing.
Tommy certainly knows the lake. He promised bites, and minutes after that one was back, the middle rod was away again.
He's gone left, I think. Yeah, he's past the pole. Feels bigger. Whoa. Come on, get him that net. Yes, got him. They're getting bigger. That's a 30 pounder, that one. 2 in the morning in this weather is just unbelievable. It's all down to the man behind me. Cheers, Tommy. Thanks, mate.
Just like last time, a quick change of hook.
There we go.
A few spoonfuls each of maize and mainline fibre boilies over the spot.
Yeah.
And we were angling.
So you will have seen me doing carp academies. I am now the student on Carp Academy, and Tommy is the instructor. It's great to be able to do this over and over again with him because obviously he lives here on the lake. He's caught all the big uns time and again, so I'm learning from him the whole time. If you are fishing at this sort of range, really you should be fishing in a pair, you know, so you're both putting rods out at this distance. One guy's driving, the other guy's dropping the rods. You could do it all on your own, and I probably will have a go at that. It couldn't be a better day for doing it today because there's no wind whatsoever. You can probably see there is still snow on the hills. It is bitterly cold. My fingers feel like they're going to fall off, and we've had 2 bites already. It's a crazy lake.
And it was about to get crazier. We didn't even have time to look at the previous fish, which was definitely bigger than the first, before the same rod burst into life yet again.
There's got to be a fish. This is definitely a big one. This one, felt it straight away as soon as I picked the rod up. Whoa, yeah, bigger fish, 100%. God, this is epic. He's ready. Oh, he's ready. Come on, get in that net. Get in that net. Yes, get in there. Oh, man. Well, if I had lost that, I would have said that was 20 pounds bigger than it was. But they are still getting bigger.
With the rig back in position, my attention turned to the fish in the net, which Tommy expertly traps against the boat using the clipped-in oar to secure it. It was clearly the biggest so far, but first things first, we needed to check out fish number 2.
Well, ladies and gents, they are getting bigger. This one is just shy of 30 pounds. Fought a lot harder than the first one. It was obviously a bigger fish, but again, this is still a baby for here. The rod's back on the spot, and you never know. From what Tommy's saying, apparently if we don't get 5 today, we're doing something wrong, which is crazy for this time of the year, but we're adding more bait after every fish, almost like summer baiting. 3 or 4 scoops of maize, a couple of scoops of boilies, and the rig back out over the top. But for now, I am very, very happy and still very surprised. Well, ladies and gents, 34 pounds this one. Was proper angry, felt like a much bigger fish than this. That's 3 bites in 2 hours, all off the same rod, all on the shot on the hook rig. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes again, so I'm going to get him back, do a couple of pictures first, and wait for the next bite. But yeah, absolutely mental fishing. Can't wait to see what this lake holds in store for the rest of the session. Oh, that's heavy. Mwah. Thank you, my darling. I know you're a boy. I'll kiss you anyway. Yes. Get in there.
I was well on the way to matching Tommy's prediction of 5 bites on the first day, and with plenty of time left this afternoon, it seemed like it would only be a formality. Crazy action considering how Baltic the weather had been and how cold the water was.
Just taking advantage of a lull in the action, just to get a bit more bait prepped up for tomorrow and the rest of the week. So smart liquid all over the boilies. Absolutely essential part of my fishing, this gear. This is a prototype one. It's a bait called Fibre, which Mainline have designed just for winter fishing. And a good little hack, you'll see there I've got my stove going, and I've just got a saucepan just with some lake water in it that I'm warming up, and this stuff goes pretty much solid in the winter because there is fat in it, and if you just warm it up in there rather than directly over the naked flame, then obviously you don't melt the plastic. This stuff I've mixed with a little bit of warm lake water as well. I never use tap water to dilute it, and just add a little bit of that onto the boilies as well. I just want to use every drop out of the bottle if I possibly can. And the reason I'm doing it today, I've already got boilies in the boat. I'm getting through, I don't know, 2 or 3 little scoopfuls every time I get a bite, plus maize as well. So the reason I'm getting these done now is you want to let the smart liquid soak into them like any soak, like any oil or glaze or anything. The longer you leave it on there, the more it soaks in, the more it gets to the bottom of the lake rather than just floating off on the wind when you first throw it in. So just give these a little mix around, a little bit more liquid. I've just saved all the old bottles that have just got the remnants in and just put them in the saucepan in the warm water just to liquefy them a little bit more and just help dilute it down. But if you're not using something like this in your fishing, it's absolutely essential as far as I'm concerned. You don't want to be putting things like fish oil on your bait in the winter, and you certainly don't want to be using fish meal type boilies that are high in protein, really high in heavy fats like fish oils, because whilst they might taste nice to the fish, once they eat them, they can stodge them up and then they just stop eating. And if they're laying on the bottom dormant, they are uncatchable. So you want a bait like this Fibre or a light cell that's very digestible even in the cold water. They love eating it. It's very, very attractive because it's letting all of that flavour out. It's not locked inside by a heavy oil. And then they just keep eating it all winter long and you keep getting bites. So, you know, the type of bait you use in the winter is absolutely key. We've got maize in our mix here as well. Maize again is very, very digestible for the fish in the winter. I know fish farmers feed their fish with maize in the winter time just to keep their health up. So a mix of maize and boilie together is what's doing the do here. Tommy wouldn't be using it and wouldn't be feeding it to his fish if it wasn't doing them good. So this little bit of prep in advance, so if you do end up getting loads of bites and running out of bait, you've got stuff in reserve, is well worth doing in those down periods. And you want to seriously think about the type of food you're using, because it will attract more fish if it's a winter boilie, and you'll carry on getting bites all winter long. I'm in. Done the currents there, but nothing was on the end. Now I've got to wind the rod back in 300 yards. Oh.
With all my bits already prepped in the boat, it made changing rigs relatively easy. The rig was a snowman on a spinner rig, but now I had a yellow isotonic pop-up on, which according to Tommy was the key to catching the big one.
The pop-up is Tommy's preferred presentation at this time of the year, and very few people use pop-ups on this lake. It's traditionally fished with bottom baits, so Apparently they are very, very good.
Biggest carp in lake, name is Castle. This day is 4 mark catch. All 4, 40mm yellow pop-up.
Right.
All 4.
So the big one's been caught 4 times,
Yes. This
and
year,
all 4 captures have been on a yellow 14mm pop-up, which is what I've got on now. Happy days.
The session was well underway with 3 quick bites to 34 pound, but this lake is known for fish to over 70 pound, which makes what I've already caught seem tiny. The pressure was off, we knew we could get bites and we knew we had a film, but now I had the bit between my teeth. I was after one of the real big uns and it was the pop-up rod to go first.
Oh, it's come off. Oh. It's come off, Tommy. Hook pull. Well, the pop-up's worked, but we've hook pulled on it. I don't know obviously why. I'm not crying, honest.
The pop-up rig wasn't working properly and I needed to unlock the code if I was to get anywhere near a big un. As darkness fell, I pondered in the bivvy knowing that these issues would have to be figured out quickly to make the most of the session.
This is the middle rod, and that is the leader. And this is on, fish is still on, right underneath the boat. Doesn't feel very big, but you never know. Come on, in you come. Gotcha. Well, after all that, 18 to 20 pounds are a bit of a disappointment on this lake, but it's another fish in the net. I think what we'll probably do is let this one go out here and refresh the rod and put it back out again. Back to get bigger.
It was a disappointing night, with the only bite being that upper double. A little after first light I had another chance, but like the previous one, it wasn't of any size.
Not a very big one, I don't think. Get in that net. Yes, got him.
Bites were coming, but it was barely a 20. The right-hand spot in the middle of the lake hadn't produced at all, so it was being moved to the far margin to join the others. I'd also be switching to a 14mm pineapple pop-up with pineapple and isotonic goo and baiting only with maize. Yellow on yellow is often a winner in winter. This rod would be moved much closer to the bank into only 3 metres of water. The rain had been so heavy that it was washing off the bank and into the marginal shelf, and was probably fractionally warmer, which would potentially draw the carp towards my waiting trap. Seeing as I was out there, the other 2 rods were getting a refresh as well.
Well, we've just seen loads of fish on the Echo, shallower than where we're fishing, but this is a proper hotspot, Tommy reckons. So we just replaced the rig with a fresh pop-up rig. I've gone for a size 2 wide Gapex, which is a super strong hook, very, very secure. I'm going to make a prediction, if we're going to get a big one, it's going to be on that rod. Well, here it is, the first light bite, another 20 pounder. And we came to Hungary for a big one, and at the moment it is not happening. Loads of effort has been put into this trip by everybody, and it's not coming up with the goods at the moment, but we're going to persevere. The rain is finally abating. It's been absolutely pouring down all morning, so we've kept this guy in the sling for a little while, just so it's a little bit more pleasant to present him to you guys. A lovely carp. I'm sure it'll get big one day, but at the moment it's not panning out how we expected. The rods I'm using are the new Kaizen Greens in 10 foot. These are the 3.5 pound test curve, and you could swing out much heavier leads than I'm using. You could use 10 ounces on these if you wanted to. But the important thing is the length. In the boat, a 12-foot rod really gets in the way, and when you're playing a fish, it forces the fish further away from the boat, so it makes them harder to land. And having a shorter handle on these rods as well makes them much more manoeuvrable when you're in the boat. So if you're going to boat fish a lot, I would wholeheartedly recommend you get yourself a set of 10 footers. These ones have got ceramic rings on. They're available with minima guides or ceramic guides in Europe, because so many people fish with braid like I am, and also with very thin lines. And these ceramic guides are much kinder to both of those situations than a normal minima guide. The minimas are more for the UK if people are stalking. You know, they're very, very lightweight. They're 3-leg all the way down, so you can be pushing them through bushes and stuff and not damage them. But these are going to form a part of my fishing all the time now, and they go up to 4 pound test curve, but I think the 3.5 is perfect for what I want to do. The reels I've coupled with, I think they're called wing casts. I've had them so long and not used them for ages, but the important thing, they're a very, very fast retrieve. They're not the biggest reel that Dyer would do, so they fit nicely on the 10 footers, and they take a hell of a lot of line. These are filled out with 15 pound sub braid, which, to be honest, in this situation is probably not the best way to do it. If I had my time again, I'd probably bring Apex, which is a floating braid, and then fish 100 metres of sub braid tied to the end of it to sink the last bit down on the bottom and keep the rest of it in the upper layers. But this is what I had. Fortunately, there's no weed or snags between me and where I'm fishing, but when I'm picking a line up, it's literally sunk all the way down to the bottom. And on the end of that, I've got tied with a 4-turn water knot. I've got a 25-metre leader, which is one of the rules on this particular lake. But rather than having a really thick leader and creating a big leader knot that ends up catching, you know, everybody knows it, when they've been out in the boat, they drop the rig, they go back to the bank, and the line keeps catching around the leader knot. So by having a tapered leader, so it's tapered over 5 metres from 035, then going right up to 0.6, I believe this one is, you get a really small knot, especially if you tie a 4-turn water knot. That's really easy to do. You just put both bits of line together, wet them, and then make a big loop, and then you're passing the end of the line, which has come off the reel, and the spool the leader is on, through that loop 4 times, then pull it up tight, make sure the loops are all the same size, and just before you fully tighten it, you wet it and then pull it really, really tight, and you get a strip of one line and a strip of the other, strip of one, strip of the other, really small knot. Test it to destruction before you're going to put it out there, and then you know it's not going to go on a fish. And I've been out there loads of times now, and I've not caught that knot at all. I cut the tag ends as short as I possibly can on that. I'm not using tubing at the other end because the leader is so thick, and that just has got a nice invisible element for the last 20 metres. It's super, super thick, so if it's rubbing against snags and stuff, it's not going to cut easily, and it just complies with the rules on this lake as well. Then the setup, you can see I've got the tips up in the air. Not only does it look really cool when I get a bite, but it means that Tommy and I can negotiate underneath the rod tips with the boat. So no matter what rod gets a bite, we can come in and not touch the other line. So you've got 2 ways of setting this up really if you're going to use a boat. You either have the tips down and have a captive back lead on, or you have the tips up and then you go underneath the rods as we're doing in this situation. And Tommy is an absolute master in the boat. I would not be doing anything as smoothly as he is, I've got to tell you, and that's why you need to be fishing in pairs at this sort of range, because when you've got a fish on, one wants to be driving and the other one is playing the fish, and if you're trying to slot yourself underneath other lines and you're doing it all, you could get in a right old mess. Bobbins wise, I've got my old faithful stows, which again are probably not ideal for this range of fishing. I'd probably have the biggest black and whites on if I did it all the time, but I've added extra weights onto these, and Damien, bless him, has got some bigger weights milled up, so they're even heavier than the ones that you normally get, because if you get a drop back, you want loads of weight there to actually register that. Remember, we've got 300 metres of line out there. If you had a really light bobbin and you got a drop back, you wouldn't get any registration whatsoever. The Delkims are set on sort of medium sensitivity because the braid heightens that because there's no stretch in it. And you can see I've got the ears on top of the Delkims. I've fallen foul of this before. Fishing with braid with very, very tight clutches, you can get the rods pulled off the rest really easily. So having ears on is an absolute essential. And the back rests as well are very, very important to this setup. They have to clip in really tight. I've actually got some ESP ones on there that I tested. I went into my local tackle shop, the Old Faithful Tackle Box in Dartford, and just tested a load of butt grips, and they were the best ones for that sort of thickness of rod, and they clip in there under real tension so the rod's not going to get pulled in. I've got the solar line clips on as well, and that's if you're fishing locked up, then if you've got a line clip on, when the line pulls out the clip, you get a load of bleeps rather than just one bleep if there's no line clip there. So that's really important if you're snag fishing, just to give you that bit more indication. So if you get a bite in the middle of the night, you don't just get one bleep and then the rod tip's bending round. You get a series of bleeps, and that's enough to get you out of bed. I'm using the stage stand version of the singles. I was on the right hand side of the swim, but now we've put all 3 rods out long. I've moved that today into the middle of the swim, and it just makes the access into the boat that little bit easier. So, you know, I use these absolutely everywhere, all the way around the world. You know, normally I've got the spikes going into the ground, but you've only got to bring the stage stands with you as well. And one other really important bit to finish on is the little locking device that Jag have designed perfectly for these singles is essential. You know, to have these screwed up tight, to do the little nuts at the bottom there, actually on the stage stands and on the uprights, to screw them up super tight so nothing moves mid-session is really, really important. So that's why we've got the rod set up the way we've got it. That's the line and the leader and everything that we're using. If you're going to do boat work for the first time, you need to invest in this specialist kit, otherwise it is going to seem very, very difficult.
The middle of the day passed without a single bleep. I knew the rigs were all in perfect position, and with the big fish pop-up rig out there, I sat on my hands and waited to see what the evening would bring. And just as I was beginning to question my choice of hook baits, the pop-up rod was away.
Right, I've got to go, mate. I'm in.
Everything about this felt like it was the one we'd been waiting for.
Oh, it's come off. Come off. Sake. What the lead still on, I think. What the is going on here? That rod was at test curve on the rest. That hook was in.
This was an absolute disaster. It was the first bite all day, and with only a couple of days remaining, I couldn't afford to keep losing them. It didn't feel like an issue with the rig, more like the amount of pressure I could exert on the fish as I was travelling out to it. I had a solution in mind, and that night I had the opportunity to test it.
Out of blue, we're into one. Just a bit slower.
Yeah, slower.
Slower, yeah, just to keep, so I can keep nice and tight on the fish. Please stay on. Whoa. Come on, be a big one. God, it's like tuna fishing. There he is. In she goes. Yes, get in there. Ah, we needed that. After 2 fish lost, we needed that. It's not a monster, it is a bionic common, probably a 30-pounder, but the weight is immaterial after all that drama this afternoon, losing one on the same spot, same rig, not exactly the same hook, but the same pattern of hook, a size 2, wide gape X-made barbless. You can imagine if I was actually standing up, my knees would have been shaking, but it's in the net. Get in there, and it's the first proper night bite as well. You can tell it's morning because the marauders are all over my rods again. The blue tits are back and forth in the boat trying to get all the little bits of maize. We've got a fish languishing in the sling, that lovely common, we haven't weighed it yet, that I had last night on a pop-up. So that left-hand rod is definitely staying where it was. I think the difference there was playing the fish much harder on the way out to it in the boat because the lead's coming off. I think the reason I lost the fish prior to that was there just wasn't enough pressure on the hook on the way out there, and the hook has literally just fallen out. Remember, when you're playing the fish, they're shaking their heads around. You know, you might not be able to feel it, but as you're playing them, they're trying to get rid of the hook, and just not having enough pressure has allowed it to do that. So that's one thing solved. You know, playing them a lot harder, going out in the boat slower, you know, is meaning they end up being fish in the net. But rigs wise, we're going to change it up. The middle rod's been out there for 24 hours now, hasn't done a bite, and I changed that to a sinking yellow essential cell bottom bait soaked in isotonic. I'm going to change that up to this. So the old faithful maize, obviously we're feeding loads of maize, and sometimes if you're feeding maize and boiling, they're really on the maize and you haven't got it on the end, then it can really cost you. So we're a couple of days in now. We need to make something happen. So 2 grains of ordinary maize and just 1 grain of slow sinking maize on the top. So it's basically going to sit with the sort of bottom of the bait touching the lake bed. So it's not going to be up wafting around. You know, a lot of people put 3 bits of slow sinking maize on the hair, no real maize, and it's wobbling about like that. And that does get you bites, but we've seen on the underwater, anything wobbling around can be treated with caution by the fish, even completely avoided. So having 2 bits of sinking and then 1 bit of slow sinking above it means it just sits against the lake bed like that, and it doesn't wobble around. So that's going over the middle rod in the same depth of water, about 10 metres, where we've been getting the bites. Oh, is that the old marauders again? I think it is. And then on the right hand rod, we moved that into 3 metres of water yesterday because Tommy felt where it was raining, a lot of rainwater was coming down that steep bank on the far side and going into the lake. And that often brings the fish up into, oh, marauders again. It often brings the fish up into the shallower water, but that's been out there 24 hours with a pop-up over just maize, and that hasn't worked. So we're going to move that rod closer to the middle rod, which has done most of the bites, into 8 to 10 metres of water, and we're going to put a smaller pop-up on. So I've been using 14mm pineapple pop-ups at Tommy's recommendation. He reckons go even smaller. So now we're going to a 12mm pop-up. My sort of, if all else fails, pop-ups that I've done so well on Gigantica, they're from last year, and I've kept dribbling on isotonic and pineapple goo onto those over the course of the year. They're still very, very buoyant. This is a new pop-up mix that Mainline are doing in all their pop-ups. So, well, this is actually rated at 13mm, but it's shrunk down a little tiny bit. But they are absolutely, like, if all else fails, you put them on and you get a bite. So I've reduced the size of the hook to a size 4 wide gape, made that barbless, and that's going to go out on a running inline, which I've wanted to fish since we started here, but because of the snags out there, I had to sort of have a rethink on day one. But now I've played quite a few fish and not snagged up at all, and the lead has stayed on quite a few times when I've been fishing with the cog leads. I'm going to try running inline on this rod and see what happens. But you've got to be careful with those. When you drop them out of the boat, you can't just let them free fall down to the bottom. You have to catch them before they hit the deck so that they straighten out and the nose doesn't dive into the bottom and make the rig sit funny. So a little bit of a change of tactics. I'm really confident in this and the maize that they're going to go. We're going to give it another sort of 15-20 minutes to see if we can get a first light bite, and then it's action stations after that.
First light came and went without a sniff, but changes were now being put into action. I'd figured out the playing style, so now I was really confident of not losing any more fish, and the rigs were being tweaked in order to single out a larger carp.
Tommy reckons the maize rod 1 hour.
The oracle had spoken. With the hour ticking down, it gave us some time to see the fish from last night.
Yep.
Yep, all good.
Well, that hour was more like 10 minutes.
A change in type of bait has made all the difference. Whilst this one doesn't feel massive, it's another one closer to a big one. Come on, you're nailed on the maize. Oh, the hook's right back there. Come on, get in that net, get in that net. Yes, get in there.
You may have noticed the Korda green floats on the line.
Well done, Lockie, for thinking of these. Like putting a back lead on, basically, but it floats rather than sinks.
These little green floats are called backbiters. You slide them down the line once the rig is in position to mark where it hits the surface. They glow in the headlamps as well, so you can navigate around your lines on the way out and the way back. Before we were rudely interrupted, though I wouldn't mind it happening again, here is that one from last night.
Here he is in all his glory, 29 pounds. The one we caught in the night on the left-hand rod on a pop-up. And the difference there definitely was pulling harder during the fight. The one I lost previously, I think I just wasn't pulling hard enough and the hook just fell out because it's barbless. So that's definitely a lesson learned. If you're dumping the lead, you really need to be pulling hard and making sure that the hook stays in the whole time.
Switching over to maize had definitely worked to increase the run rate, but at 25 pound, these fish needed to get bigger.
While we're waiting for another bite, I just want to talk to you about boat safety and boat organisation. So first of all, what I've got on here is absolutely essential. You see it's done up underneath as well, so it doesn't ride up if I do fall in. The water here at the moment is 4 degrees. Now I do ice baths back at home. The coldest I've ever been in is 5 degrees, and that is ridiculously cold, and I'm putting myself in it on purpose, so I'm mentally prepared for it. You go over the side of the boat in 4 degrees, you want to be getting back in that boat very, very quickly. The longer you spend in the water, the more chance there is of hypothermia, having a heart attack. It really is that serious. So at this time of the year, I would never get in a boat. Oh, that was one of the blue tits on the rods again. I would never get in the boat without one of these on, even if you end up losing the fish. I've got the life jacket. If I'm asleep, I've got the life jacket next to my bed chair. I'm putting that on as I'm going down to the rods, and I don't pick the rod up until it's done up properly. It's so important. And some of these inflate by just pulling the red tag there. Some of them are self-inflating. This one I've chosen the self-inflating one. I got it from the tackle box. You have to check the cartridges in these regularly to make sure that they're still in date, and you can obviously replace the cartridges if they are out of date. But so important, you know, no carp is worth dying over.
Your safety over this deep, cold water cannot be overstated. Please do not get into the boat without a life jacket fully done up. Slow and steady action in an organised fashion is a key element of successful boat fishing. On this trip, I've kept an essentials kit in the boat that stays there all the time. In my bucket, I've got my rig safe full of spare rigs, complete with hook baits, all ready to go. So I have minimum work to do to replace a rig between fish. A spares box contains leads, a spool of leader just in case it gets damaged or cut off, scissors and spare hooks. Being prepared and organised in a boat ensures safety and faster repositioning of rigs, so really give it some attention.
Now, all of that would not be worth anything if I didn't have this guy with me. My best mate in Holland, Co's wife Irene, bought this for me, and when this is probably 15 years old. When she gave it to me, I thought, oh, that's a bit cumbersome, I'm probably never going to use it. I use this every single time I go fishing for one reason or another. Whether my single system's locked up too tight and I've got to undo it, if I've got a snipper swivel off the top of a lead, it's got cutters on it, it's got all the little attachments on it. If I shut that up, obviously it's like a multi-tool, so you've got all your different attachments in there. The knife I use to open my tins of sweet corn, you know, there's a Phillips screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver in there. So important to have a multi-tool with you as well, because you never know what's going to happen. And I'm using it at the moment to hold onto the hook and just to slide the anti-tangle sleeve off, because my hands are cold. The anti-tangle sleeve is really tight and getting it off of there is really difficult. So that's an absolutely essential bit of kit. Towel just for wiping your hands and stuff. You could use that for wrapping around the line if something was snapped and you wanted to, you actually break the line. You do not want to be pulling braid or a leader just with bare hands. You can cut into your fingers and create a horrible mess. I've seen that on a video. Mark Bryant went away with one of his mates to France. They got the braid all caught around the prop and he cut his hand to ribbons. It was disgusting, you know, and that was on the first day of their trip because he was trying to do that. So having that in there, I put it across my lap when I'm doing the rig stuff, but to have it wrapped around something to pull for a break, you know, is very handy as well. And then a pair of gloves, again, for pulling for a break. So if you haven't got a towel in the boat, you know, putting these on are going to save your hands. You could use a pair of builder's gloves as well. It hasn't got to be an expensive pair of North Faces like I've got here, you know, but something to protect your hands is really, really important. And then I've got a spare pair of glasses in there. I have done it. I've got in the boat with no glasses on. I've run out of the bivvy, put the life jacket on, picked up the rod, jumped in the boat, got out into Lake and thought, why does everything look really blurry? Got no glasses on. So spare pair of glasses in the boat to put them on just in case. These bits obviously sit at the bottom of the boat because you're hopefully never going to use them. An adjustable wrench there, so if you've got to take the prop off the boat or do up connections to the battery or undo them, you know, having that with you, absolutely essential. And then a very sharp knife. Say you end up with loads of braid. Oh, we're away, we're away, we're away. Yes! Well, we have been rudely interrupted by a bite on the middle rod. This is the maize. Tommy said it'd be the first one to go. Feels like a good fish as well. It's the first one that's taken line off me at distance. Come on, be a big one. Oh, there he is. In the net, right by the boat. Get in there. Ah. The maize has worked. Get in there.
It was another fish on the middle rod in the deeper water. Maize was definitely getting the faster bites, but would it produce one of the lake's monsters?
We've got, you know, just under 48 hours left of the session. If this rod keeps going at a better rate, then you never know, one of those big ones might come along. There we go. 28.5 pounds of absolute perfection. Look at the colours on it. I love fishing in the winter time, but this more than anything is proof of the pudding. So they really are loving this. I bet they're cleaning this out, and the boilies are just sitting there and probably not being taken. So we're going to leave that rod on maize. If we get one more bite, I'm going to swap another rod to it, but Tommy, being the oracle, reckons the pop-ups are going to produce the bigger fish. So we'll have to wait and see. Look at this out here. That light is amazing. I'm sure it's a lot warmer over on that bank than it is here, but this is one of the reasons we go carp fishing, to see the world in this kind of light. You know, you've got 3 rods out there, you could get a bite at any minute, and you get to experience this as well. It truly is magical.
As the light was fading, I had another chance.
The maize rod is away again.
But despite the impressive battle curve, it wasn't that big one that we so desperately needed. And as the night progressed, 2 more tripped up.
Bosh.
But once again, nothing of any size. I decided to massively increase the amount of maize over that rod in the hope it would attract the bigger ones to the party. First light wasn't far away. This was our last day to get a bigger fish, and the pressure was really on. So, against all advice, I chose to put a single drilled out 20mm fibre bottom bait on and just feed boilie over the top. It was a radical change to what was working, but I'd hope at least on that rod we'd swap numbers for the single chance of a big one.
Just getting another spare rig done. Can't be too prepared for this sort of fishing, since it's all happening out in the boat. And rig-wise, it hasn't changed massively over the course of the session. Stiff rig, so made out of 25-pound boom. I'm actually field testing the basics boom, which is really good, a fraction of the price as well. Got no tint in it, but the properties are almost the same. It's sort of semi-stiff. This is the 25-pound version, which is more than man enough for the job out there. And I keep them to about sort of 4.5 to 5.5 inches long. They're attached to a cog lead system, and I want them just long enough so that the end of the hook link lays flat against the lake bed. I'm putting a big bit of putty in the middle of the hook link to help it lay flat. We've found from the underwater filming that's really important. You don't want anything looped up off the bottom. Spinner swivel at the other end, and then I'm clipping on a size 2 long shank X that I'm making barbless because that's the rules here. And I'm fishing that D-rig style, so with a D-rig kicker. They are quite tight to get over the hook and actually onto the spinner swivel at the beginning, but if you put them over your kettle and steam and warm them up, or just put some saliva on the swivel before you pull them over. I tend to hold the hook with the crimp tool or a pair of pliers and then really pull them onto the eye of the hook. It's quite hard to get purchase and get enough pull on them any other way. But once you've put them onto the hook once, you can take them off. I just, if I'm fishing with barbed hooks, I just make it barbless. Obviously in this situation I don't have to. And I'll just slide the shot on the hook and everything else off of that hook, throw the hook away, and then I'll use the same D-rig, sometimes the same bait, on the next rig. And using a D-rig basically separates the bait and the hook, and I think you get much better hook holds that way. So I'm fishing with bottom baits. I started off with a 20mm fibre bottom bait with just the top sliced off it, and then a 14mm pineapple pop-up soaked in the isotonic goo, just a little sliver of that sliced off the pop-up and joined on the top of the hook bait. So it's a snowman, but it's sort of a trimmed down snowman. So it almost looks like one boilie, just with a little fleck of colour at the top. And that did the first 4 bites, I believe. And then next to that, on one of the other rods, I was fishing the same lead system, the cog lead, but I was fishing it with a pop-up rather than a bottom bait, just because Tommy said on here, a lot of the big fish have been caught on pineapple pop-ups. I knew that in advance, so I brought some 14mm with me, which were a little bit bigger than I would normally use. I started off with a size 2 Longshank X, again fished as a pop-up, and I got a hook pull on that. So I changed over to a size 2 Wide Gape X, which has got a beaked point, and beaked points tend to stay in better than straight points. It's not a problem when you're using the shot on the hook, which I am, with the bottom baits, but with pop-ups you can't use it. So the beaked point, I think, got me the next fish, and then I moved from that onto a claw hook, which has got a beaked point but a longer shank. Just opened up the gape of the hook a little bit, and I caught my next 2 or 3 fish on that rod on that claw hook, and they were all absolutely nailed. So the pop-up's definitely working. I've never fished it with a cog lead before, but the fish were absolutely nailed every time. And if that was what was producing the goods, I'd be using it, right the way through the session. But I changed over yesterday onto 2 grains of real maize and a bit of slow sinking maize on top of it. So again, like my bottom baits, the bottom part of the bait is touching the lake bed. That's really important. I'm not fishing with wafters. I don't want them wobbling about above the D-rig because they're all on a micro ring swivel. Any movement by the fish over the top of those baits and they're going to wobble around, and none of the others on the lake bed are going to do that. So I want the bottom part of the bait touching the lake bed. If you fish with 3 bits of plastic corn, all slow sinking, they would flutter around above it. That's how most people fish it. I've caught fish like that in the past, but I wouldn't do it anymore. So having them 2 bits of real maize on, just hold it down enough so it stays put, and the hook holds were absolutely mental. But I caught 2 or 3 small fish in a row on that, so I've taken it off now, and I've gone back to a 20mm fibre bottom bait, just drilled out with a bit of cork in the top. Again, not to make it a wafter. If you drop it into the edge, it sinks, but it sinks round the same way every single time. And on all these rigs, you'll notice I've got an anti-tangle sleeve, and that's fixed, so there's no pivot point, so it's pushing everything out away from the lead system. Now, the main reason for that in this situation is it's pushing everything away. So when I drop it over the side of the boat, I absolutely know it's not tangled. With a hinge, the hook bait can fold back up against the main line, and you could get a tangle on the way down. It's almost free falling because it's so deep, just letting the line tick through my fingers. And with that anti-tangle sleeve on, it's just keeping the hook link away. The other thing it does is it stops the fish blowing the hook bait back up against the leader, or in this case, the heavy line that I've got on as a leader. But if you were using tubing or lead core, the same, if it gets blown back against it because there's a pivot point, the fish just stop wanting to take it. So by forcing it out in front of the lead the whole time, you stop it from tangling on the descent. You also stop it from getting blown back against the leader. And as soon as the fish picks it up, it just feels the force of the lead straight away. And that is exaggerated by the 5-ounce cog. Because the hook link is attached to the middle of the lead, there is nothing better than that to hook fish. From going from no resistance to the full weight of the lead in an instant is a massive edge. And if you're boat fishing and you're not fishing a lead system like that on hard bottom, you are missing out. So that's the rig development over the course of the session. I've got 2 bottom baits out, just 20mm with a little bit of cork in at the moment. And I've got 3 or 2 grains of maize and a bit of plastic on the other rod. Fingers crossed for a big one.
This was it, the final few hours of the final day. I was running out of time to catch something big. I'd fished my heart out to get a better fish, which at the end of the day is all any of us can do. It's great advice to focus on what you've learned from a disappointing session, rather than give yourself a hard time for not catching what you want. I'd listened, I'd followed advice, I'd learnt loads. I was now fishing exactly how I'd planned to fish at the start. It was now all down to the carp.
Rod again. I think we are away from danger now. Pray it's a big one. Oh, come on, be a big one. Still feel it pulling. Getting closer and it's starting to feel heavier. I've just seen it and it's much bigger. Oh no. Please stay on, please. Please, please, please. This is the one we want. This is the one we want. This is what we came here for. Get in that net. Get in that net. Get in there. Yes! Get in there. Ah, yes! Because I knew it was a big one, I even brought the bum wipes out with me. Yes! Finally, a proper one. 40 pounds, 15 ounces. This is what we came to Hungary for. This is what we put all the effort in for. Just absolutely made up with this. We've braved the weather, the journey, all the grief of going out in the boat. And it's all been worth it for this moment. This is what carp fishing is all about. Yes. Mwah. Off you go to get bigger. Yes, get in there, mate.